Massacres, party of six.
Hi guys!
Hey!
Today is July 5th and it's our 9th anniversary.
9 years.
Ooh.
Can you believe it's been 9 years? If you only knew our story of how we met.
That's why we're going to tell it to you.
Today we are going to tell y'all how we met.
That's right.
The crazy story. Was it going to be? Was it not going to be? Was it going to be? I don't know. You have to find out.
First of all, the weird thing is we both started in the same city of Pasadena, Texas, and didn't know it.
Yep. My dad was a Pasadena police officer.
I lived in the slums on the other side of town. So our paths didn't cross unless her dad arrested my mom at some point.
We don't know.
Fast forward to second semester of 7th grade for me. I moved to Spring to go live with my dad and my stepmom and all my little brothers. And at the time I was 13 years old. It was 1998, January. And that's when I first met her. And it wasn't the best or friendliest of meetings.
Before we get to that, let's kind of talk about how I got to Spring. My parents, we started in Pasadena, like he said, and then we moved to a Houston home, and we stayed in Houston for a couple years. Got divorced, but they got divorced, and me and my dad stayed in the house for a couple years, and then my mom, you know, she ran off. So then my dad couldn't afford the house by himself anymore, so we had to go move to Magnolia to go live with my meemaw. My meemaw decided that she didn't want me and my sister living with her anymore, and so we were forced to go live with my mom. And lo and behold, my mom lived in Spring, where he lived. So we ended up going to the same school, York Junior High, and we rode the same school bus. And then one day...
That's where it happened, on the school bus.
Yep.
I was a new student. She was there a semester before me, so she started 7th grade at York Junior High. I showed up second semester in January. It was 1998. And I remember I was on the bus. I didn't know anybody. I met this dude. He's my friend to this day. And but he was kind of timid. And I was still getting my my youthful anger built up. I was used to people pushing me around and bullying me back in Spring, or back in Pasadena. So when I got to Spring, I wasn't having any of it. So she had a friend, and who convinced her to team up against me and my new friend. And Kay came up to us with an attitude and said, "Excuse me, you guys are sitting in our chair." So my friend started to get up, and I pushed him back down. I said, "I don't see your name on it," you know, like kids do. And that was our exchange. Me and her did not like each other starting off because I was sitting in her seat with her friend.
Yeah, it was a dare. The whole thing was a dare. I still, like, even though I had been there for the first semester, I had only had one girlfriend really, and I like her friends and who she hung out with. So I was like shy and didn't really know a lot of people, and she wanted me to be more like her and be basically a bully, push people around, and you know, you tell people what to do, and this is how it needs to be, and if they don't like it, then, you know, whatever. Well, I was not like that at all, and I guess, you know, I wanted to show her, like, oh, I can be tough, you know, I was stupid, and she finally talked me into it, even though I did not want to do it at all. I was like, this is not me, this is not my character. I don't go up to people and tell them to move, like, that's not who I am at all. But she ended up talking me into it, and I was stupid enough, and I told him, you need to get out of my seat, you need to move, it's my seat, giving him an attitude. And yeah, I didn't like him at first. And I don't know why, because I'm the one that was mean. The girl, she talked me into it. She talked me into doing it, and I don't like Brian, so you don't need to like Brian, and stupid kid stuff. So that was our first exchange.
And so yeah, after that lovely day, we continued on our lives, and I think it wasn't until that summer, the summer of '98, in between 7th grade and 8th grade, where she lived basically right across the street from me, with a park in between us, and we just started hanging out. I don't even remember how it happened, but we just started hanging out during the summer, and we became really good friends, and eventually we were best friends.
Danielle really wanted me to experience at a young age with boys, and I did not want to. And so I remember always thinking maybe I should become friends with a male, and maybe she'll get off my back. And I think that's maybe how we started talking, because I remember she always wanted me to do things with boys, and I just wasn't ready. I always had it set in my mind that I was going to get married, and have kids and do it the right way. And I never was like her. Her and her friends, they were exploring and doing things way before me. I was the prude of the group. I did nothing. I did no drugs like they did. I didn't, hook up with guys like they did at such a young age. That was just not me. So I think that's how we basically did it. She was telling me, you need to find a boyfriend. And we ended up just becoming friends.
Yeah, I was basically the same. And I think that's why she felt so safe with me, having me as her best male friend, because I was super respectful. Me and her, we did our teenage fooling around, but
we never went all the way at a young age, ever. We never did.
It was always the safest environment, because I only went as far as she wanted to go. I didn't start nothing. No. I sat back. I was the friend, and I watched her go through her boyfriends, and I just kind of hung back waiting for her to get over all that and know who her true soulmate was. Because back then I was real deep, devout Christian dude, and I was always in my Bible, and I felt like I had a really close relationship with God. And even to this day, she knows, I tell her that God told me way back then in 1998 that I was going to marry her. I just knew. I've always known it. And it's been 20 plus years, 22 years that we've known each other. I always knew.
It's insane.
I just kind of sat back as the best friend, waiting for her to go through all her boyfriends. And
Danielle was always telling me, you should go to this guy and this guy. And it was basically in high school, it was only two guys that I would go back and forth from. I would make them jealous. But I never, like I said, I never did anything with them in high school, ever. Because I never trusted them, the type of guys they were. But Brian, I always trusted. I always felt safe, and I knew that if, I was ready to take that step, that I would feel safe with him. I never felt safe with any of the other boyfriends. I knew that, they had slept around before me. I had no experience with that yet. I was with a boyfriend, me and Brian. I kind of put Brian on the back burner, which is so bad, I know. And then I'd break up with my boyfriend, and then I'd want come run into Brian and be like, oh, you're still here. We're still friends. And then I did that for years and years and years. And yeah. And then, or I think it was senior year where we stopped talking, because I got my first real, I guess, boyfriend. I thought it was real. His name was Rob. And Rob didn't like me talking to any guys. And you got to remember, I was an 18-year-old high school student, and of course I'm going to talk to guys. Guys are in my school. And he didn't like it. So I basically cut Brian off. And Brian kind of did his own thing senior year. I kind of, was loyal to Rob. And yeah, that's basically how my senior year went. Like, we would see each other in passing, but we weren't mean to each other. We would still, like, you know, probably say hi or whatever, but we just stopped really hanging out senior year-ish.
It was a shame because I witnessed everything. I feel like I was always waiting for Candace to come to her senses and realize that we were meant to be together. But I was her best friend also, and that always was number one. I always put her above everything. I tried to warn her when her boyfriends were cheating.
Yeah.
You know how teenage girls are. He would never do that to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
But it was a shame. But in senior year, her boyfriend told her didn't want her talking to, any dudes, and that included her best friend. So I just started hanging out with my friends and kind of gave up on the fantasy that I was ever going to be with the love of my life, Candace. And I seriously, that's my dad, that's my parents. They know that Candace was always the one I was looking out for. I hardly ever dated in high school because I was waiting for her. I sat there watching her with her boyfriends, like, yeah, he's cheating. Yeah, I'm better than him. I could do better than that. Oh, I would never do that. But eventually, after high school, I moved back to Pasadena, and didn't see her for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into the things I got into some trouble, and basically got pulled out of that trouble by another friend who brought me back to Spring. She was no longer there. Where were you?
I left high school in 2003, and like I said earlier, I was still with that guy Rob, and we worked at Walmart. So that was that. We would go to school, go to Walmart. That was our life basically. And he, mind you, I'm 18. He was 30 years old. Okay.
Cradle robber.
Let's just say, if I could go back, I probably never would have gone down that road. But I had been single for so long, and then like my mom was like pushing me just to go to any guy, and then of course lo and behold, there's Rob at work. So that's how I met Rob. But me and Rob didn't work out. I ended up at Walmart meeting another guy named Steven, and he lived in Indiana. For about 6 months, and then Steven graduated because he was going to school down here, and then he went back home, and then maybe, I want to say like maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, it wasn't that long, I had ended up leaving my job and wanting to go move to Indiana with him because I thought, maybe he was the one. He had given me a promise ring, and I thought me and him were going to get married and do all that stuff. And so I moved to Indiana, and I stayed there for about, I think it was like 2.5 years. And then that didn't work out. And so guess where I came? I went back home to Spring.
Around then it was about 2005. Somewhere in 2005. Yeah. And like I said, I was in a bad situation in Pasadena. I got pulled out by a friend from high school that just happened to be passing by with his girlfriend. I basically hopped in his car. He brought me back to Spring, dropped me off at the Woodlands Mall, and I got a job. Met another friend there that I knew, and moved in with him. I mean, I was a reckless young man in my earlier years, and I guess she had come back around that time, but we had not connected together again. Mm-hmm. And when we finally did was, I think, in the summer or the fall of 2005. I was living in Conroe, and she was dating a dude she met on a dating website.
It was like singleme.com or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we hooked back up, started hanging out, here and there again. She had just come back from Indiana. I had just come back from the ghetto, and we're living our separate lives. We were also hanging out, and I watched her start dating guys again, and I fell back into the role of best friend again. Anyway, while she was dating this one guy, I started dating one of my girlfriends from like 8th grade, this European girl that was her best friend. She hooked me up with her way back in the day, even though I wanted to be with her the whole time. So, hey, date my friend. Her name was Sarah. Like, date my Croatian friend. I was like, oh, well, if that's what you want, I'll do it for you. So I started talking to this girl again. She was going to college in Austin, So it was late 2005. I moved in briefly with her boyfriend, and then I left to go to. I got sad that their relationship was growing and budding, and I wasn't involved. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna finally move on. I'm gonna go date somebody else. I went to Austin and stayed over there for a couple of months.
With my enemy, by the way. She was like my enemy at this time.
By that time, we
were not getting along. And I remember when I found out, I was like, why her? Like, out of all the girls in the world. And it had nothing to be, I wasn't even jealous. It's not like I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so jealous of her. It was just like, I was just thinking, like, why couldn't have Brian picked anybody else? Like, why her? But
I don't know. Maybe it was out of spite. I don't know. Maybe I gravitated towards the person I knew she would get pissed off the most. I don't know. If I did, it wasn't conscious, but it didn't work out anyway. She ended up cheating on me back home in Croatia, and so I moved back to Pasadena and got back into the bad stuff. So. My whole life was a roller coaster ride. Bam! I would peak, crash.
So much
peak,
stuff
crash.
has happened in Brian's life. He's always said that like he could make a movie about it because his life has been so crazy. Like it's insane.
Yeah, it's been so crazy. It's completely inappropriate to tell you anything at all about my life in detail from 2003 to 2007. So, dude, we're just gonna assume that I was a. We'll go watch Scarface. How about that? Anyway, I don't know what she was doing at this time, but I kind of distanced myself from her. I stayed in Austin. When we broke up, I came back and clouded my mind as best as I could with the situation down there. Until once again, I was pulled out by my best buddy Brad, the Archangel Brad, who brought me back to Spring to get my life together with my dad. And while I was there, I met another girlfriend. I was planning on joining the Air Force. So my dad let me move in with him, and I started cleaning my system out and trying to get in a good place in my mind so I could join the military. And I let this other girl, Erin, lead me astray. And while I was with Erin, I find out she is back in town. And so we start going out to lunch and stuff. I don't know what you were doing from that time.
After that boyfriend that he was talking about that we were with, and then he left town, I moved to Pasadena, back to Pasadena with my dad, because I was working at a hotel out there, and that was pretty fun. Like, I didn't have no relationships for months. I was kind of single for a long time. I didn't want to, be and do any of that. And so I basically was living in Pasadena with my dad for a couple months. We were living in a hotel, and I was, like I said, I was working there. So, and then I would come back like on weekends and hang out with people, and but most of the time I would just stay in Pasadena and work. But, and then I think I got fired from there, but I don't remember exactly why I got fired. But I remember I got fired, and so I had no choice, but I had to go back to Spring. And Brian was already in Spring with Erin, and I remember me driving home one day down the railroad tracks, and I see him walking, and I think that's how we actually started talking, because he was like, oh, I'm back, or I told him, hey, I'm back in town, you're back in town, and I think that's how we started talking. I picked him up, and I, drove him home.
Yeah, how crazy is that? Me and her both would get together, split, and go to the same kinds of places over and over. Yeah. Pasadena, back to Spring, Pasadena, back to Spring. Sometimes meeting with each other, sometimes missing each other. Yeah. But it was 2006. I was living with my dad, trying to get fit for the Air Force, dating this girl I worked with named Erin, and I had no car. So I was walking down the railroad tracks back and forth to my job at Dollar General. I was a stocker there, and I see a car drive by, because it's trees, railroad tracks, road. And in the distance, I see a car pass, and then by the time I get to the road, that same car is parked on the side of the road.
That's me.
And it ended up being her. And I was like, hey, Candace, hey, what's up? So we started hanging out again. I stayed with Erin for a little while. And then in 2007, August 2007, I got a job in the oil industry, which is where I work now. I work in the oil industry, but it's all started in 2007. I started from there, and I remember she was getting her first apartment by herself, and she didn't want to do it alone.
I was terrified.
So I moved in with her in an apartment in Houston, and that was the first time we actually lived together. Like, I'd stayed the night at her house, but that's the first time we lived together.
And I remember we had agreed at the time that we were just going to be friends with benefits. Like, we had decided, like, you date someone, let me know. If I date someone, I'll let you know. But until then, we'll do this, basically.
Yeah.
And so we did that for a long time. And we'd go out dancing and go bowling and just hang out when we weren't working. And I was working actually at the airport at that time. And then we just hung out for a long time. I don't know how long that was.
Yeah, we lived there for a whole lease.
Yeah.
Her and me and our dog Sadie.
Oh yeah, Sadie Mae.
And you always knew what was gonna happen. One of us got a significant other.
Mm-hmm.
She got a boyfriend that we both went to high school with. He was a mutual friend of ours.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of awkward, her living with another dude.
Yeah.
The lease was almost up anyway. So I went ahead and got my own place out north in Conroe.
I ended up moving in with my sister and her boyfriend, and I ended up moving in with them, and I ended up getting pregnant with Presley, our first daughter, by my boyfriend, and it was just one of the boyfriends that I had from high school. So it's not like it was a random guy.
Nah, we knew we both knew him really
I had
well.
known him from high school. We had dated in high school. And so me and him had reconnected too, and I ended up getting pregnant with Presley, and he didn't want nothing to do with her, basically. I ended up having to go live with my mom because I didn't want to live with my sister anymore. She was getting into bad things. I ended up going to live with my mom, and I ended up having Presley in 2009. So it's 2009 when all this occurred. And then he was living, I think, in Conroe.
I was living in a trailer in Conroe that I had bought. It was before then. I had been couch hopping, living with friends and stuff, and getting apartments with friends. This is the first time I was alone in my own place, little 2-bedroom trailer in the middle of the woods in Conroe, and I was seeing a girl. Hi, Amber. And we were living our own lives. At this point, when I knew that she was having a baby, I completely thought I was out of the picture. I was like, okay, well now there's no chance for us at all. I was wrong. What I thought I knew back in 8th grade, when I thought I was certain we were going to get married, that's never going to happen again. And then lo and behold, I get a knock on the door one day, and we're still talking. We're keeping in touch with the phone. It's not like she's completely showed up out of the blue, but it was kind of out of the blue. She knocks on the door. I open it. It's her, and she's saying, "Hey, do you mind if I come stay here?" I was like, "I don't have a good place to stay. Do you mind if I stay here?" So I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, come on in." So because of that, just like the situation before where we lived together, she got a boyfriend. So I moved out. When she moved in, I was pretty sure it was going to be awkward having a boy and girl live together that weren't dating while I was seeing someone. So, sorry, Amber. I kind of gravitated away, and but she ended up having Presley, and I completely fell head over heels in love with that little girl, and I felt like she was mine just from. I was there whenever in the hospital, whenever Presley.
Yeah, he was even
born.
going to be Uncle Brian. Like
Yeah.
I even wrote that in her baby book. Like he was going to be her Uncle Brian. I knew I wanted him in her life because he had been in my life for so long. He was like the one person that never left out of all my friends. Like he was the one person that never left. So, and I trusted him, and I knew he wouldn't hurt Presley. So.
I fell hard for that little girl. I watched her on my days off. I was still working in the oil industry. On my days off, when she would be going to work at the airport, she was an accountant at the airport. I would stay at her mom's place and watch, Presley as she was growing up, and me and Presley got a really, really strong bond behind that, and I guess she liked that. it tickled her fancy seeing how close we bonded, and Candace and I eventually decided, hey man, let's stop BSing all these years, and let's be together, start a family. And
We decided that on July 4th, 2009. That's when we decided that we were going to be together, for good, because now I have a kid and I can't be running around town. Not that I did, but I can't be doing that anymore. Like, I have to be responsible. So on July 4th, 2009 is when we finally had the talk, and we decided, okay, well, let's be together. Let's do this. You'll be her dad. I'll be her mom. We're going to do this thing. So I always wanted to get married on July 4th, but nobody would marry us. I remember trying, after we had, been living together for a while, I remember trying to get someone to marry us, and nobody would marry us on July 4th, because I was like, well, that's when we officially got together, so that has to be our date, but nobody would marry us on July 4th.
It was 2 years. We were together for 2 years as a little unmarried family unit, me, her, and Presley. And then the day after our 2-year anniversary of being together in 2011, July 5th, 2011, which would be today, our anniversary.
Yeah. 9 years later.
That's whenever we actually officially got married. And what's the first thing she wants to do? I want a baby from you. Yeah.
So Kinsley was conceived on our wedding night.
Oh.
Literally, she was. To the day, she was conceived on our wedding night.
And it was a blast. Oh.
We did have a miscarriage between Kinsley and Ledger, but then after Kinsley, of course, was Ledger. And he was my first boy, so I was super excited.
That one was my fault. I take full responsibility.
And then we were good. We had our 3 kids. We didn't expect to have any more. About 5 years later, we got a surprise. And I remember never forgetting, here I am. I wanted to have all my kids in my 20s. So, when 34 came and I saw that pregnancy test and it said pregnant, I was like, I am not doing this. But, of course, I wouldn't change anyway. And then, of course, Deacon showed up on January 24th, 2019. So that's basically how our lives are, how we got together, how we met.
It was crazy. It was like it was like planes constantly passing each other, and every now and then would meet. Sometimes pass each other like this.
It's
but
crazy.
After all the running around and crisscrossing back and forth to Pasadena, her boyfriends, my girlfriends, eventually what I always knew would come to pass came to pass. Yeah. And it's 9 years today, and 1 more year and she can get alimony when she divorces me.
No. He always reminds me that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I've been dreading this moment. I'm just kidding. Love you, babe. Well, I hope you enjoyed our crazy story of ups and downs and highs and lows. Some stuff that we cannot go into because it's not rated G,
yes,
or PG-13 for that matter.
Yes.
But keep on watching our channel. Like, subscribe. We're on. What are we on?
We're on Instagram, Facebook. Oh, Deacon's asleep. Is he asleep?
He's passing out.
Oh, okay, we gotta hurry. Okay, we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we just joined TikTok. So if you want to see us dancing and being silly, we're on TikTok. Our kids just introduced us to that, so we're still learning how to do it. But, yep, we just do normal family videos, showing what we do. We do parodies. He makes the parodies. He writes the parodies, and then
I write them. She directs the video for them.
Yeah, we do those. So you can go check those out. But, all right, well, hope everyone has a great rest of the day. And
I hope you were inspired by our tale of true love that never dies.
All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.